In 1973, Jack Hill's Coffy was a pretty big hit, and it propelled its lead, Pam Grier, into stardom. So, in true exploitation fashion, a sequel was quickly planned, and initially, AIP, the production company, didn't want Jack Hill to do the sequel. They didn't exactly get along. Also, since sequels in general were not performing as well at the box office, they decided this sequel would not be a sequel at all. So we've got a production company that doesn't get along with the director and a sequel that's not going to be a sequel. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. But the film still got Pam Grier, so things are stacked in its favor. Welcome to Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob, and today I'm taking a look at Foxy Brown from 1974. Jack Hill didn't like this film nearly as much as he liked Coffy, and when I interviewed Josiah Howard, we both agreed that this film is not nearly as good as Coffy, and yet many people consider Foxy Brown to be their favorite blaxploitation film. So let's see what they see in this movie. We open on some psychedelic credits with some great music by Willie Hutch. And then some headlights, literal headlights. Pam Grier isn't in this yet. And these headlights seem to be following this man. He stops by a hot dog stand and a man hops out of the headlights car. But luckily for him, the police swing by for a coffee. The headlights man sits down at the hot dog stand and orders a taco. Can't really blame him. I also prefer tacos to hot dogs. Although I don't like them with so much lettuce. Kinda gets stuck in your teeth, you know? Anyway, that chase man calls up Foxy and says that he's in trouble and needs help. She begrudgingly agrees to help him. He is her brother, after all. She shows up just in time, and they get back to her place, where he tells her that he owes some money to some unsavory types. She says that he can hole up in her place while she figures out something to do about his problem. Then we learn that Foxy's boyfriend is in the hospital recovering from some plastic surgery. He's going to have a new face to help him hide from some drug pushers he tried to build a case against as an undercover agent. His new face is convincing enough, but Foxy's brother figures out who he really is and sells him out to the pushers he owes money to. And man, selling out your sister's boyfriend to help cover your debt, that is some low-life, degenerate behavior right there. Here's hoping Foxy knows how to handle rats. But unlike her degenerate brother, Foxy still cares about family and tells him he needs to give up the people who killed her boyfriend because it's him or them. He gives up them. Surprise, surprise. So now the revenge portion of the film can begin. Because these pushers also run a stable of high-class call girls, Foxy applies for a position. And if this sounds a lot like the plot of Coffy, you ain't wrong. Foxy's first client is a judge who, in exchange for time with girls like Foxy, goes easy on some street-level pushers who show up in his court. Foxy embarrasses him, and the next day he does not fulfill his promise to the organization. This hurts the organization. And that organization strikes back. They capture Foxy and learn that she is the girlfriend of that undercover agent they killed. So now they know what she was up to, getting revenge for her slain lover. Well, her punishment for interfering with their corrupt judge operation is to be sent to the ranch. At the ranch, the men there will get her hooked on horse and, well, they'll, have their way with her. And after a time, she'll be sold to the islands. At least that's the plan. But Foxy ain't gonna give up without a fight. So, will Foxy's revenge plans bring down the organization that killed her boyfriend? And how's her brother gonna fare in all of this? That's enough out of me as far as plot goes. Let's talk some highlights. The music. My only complaint about Coffy is that the soundtrack isn't as great as the film itself. I don't think the Roy Ayers soundtrack is bad, but it's not as iconic in the way that the film is. But here in Foxy Brown, we've got a soundtrack by Willie Hutch, and it is amazing. Willie Hutch is amazing. Number 2, the pacing. This thing starts off exciting and then tears through the runtime. It hops from interesting or exciting scene to interesting or exciting scene. There's not much fluff here at all. It hits the ground running and keeps the pace up all the way to the end. Oh, and it's a minor highlight, but I do like seeing Bob Miner here. He shows up in a number of films in the 70s, usually in small roles, except for The Delinquent Schoolgirls, where he was one of the leads. But what's cool about Bob Miner is the work he did as a stunt performer. He was the first black member of the Stuntmen's Association of Motion Pictures and was eventually the vice president. It's really wild that before him there really weren't very many black stunt performers working in Hollywood. In a lot of the old movies, if they needed a stunt performer for a black actor, they'd have to use a white performer in blackface. Bob Miner helped change that. Finally, of course, Pam Grier. She's always a highlight. She's not the best actor in the world, but that doesn't matter. She's a star, and when she walks in front of that camera, it's obvious who the star is. Some people say that Pam Grier's characters, Coffy and Foxy Brown, were the first true badass female action characters. And it is true that they were before Ripley and Princess Leia and Sarah Connor, but they weren't before Varla.
I never try anything. I just do it. Want to try me?
I doubt Tura Satana was the first either, but she was before Pam Grier. But despite the music, the pacing, and Pam Grier, I don't think the movie is perfect. Like a dirty judge getting down and dirty with paid entertainment, this film has some shortcomings. Well, this film retraces many of the steps left by Coffy, but it doesn't retrace them as well. In addition to not being original, the story here just isn't as good. It's little more than a worse remake of a great film. True, it does have its memorable moments.
Now, Mr. Anderson, we'll have none of that nonsense. Ooh.
But most of the film, it's been there, done that, and been there, done that better. If AIP had done what Jack Hill wanted and let him make a true sequel to Coffy, we might have had something really special, but that didn't happen, so that's not what we got. This film does, in many ways, feel more outlandish than Coffy, which is maybe why it appeals to people. I mean, how many costume changes does Pam Grier have in this movie? A lot. Unfortunately, few of those outfits have aged as well as the more timeless outfits she wears in Coffy. The outfits here are all very 70s, which I found to be more distracting than anything. It felt too on the nose. It's more like, hey, look at us, it's 1974 and we're making a movie. But whatever, it's still a fun movie, it's just, how do you top Coffy? You don't.